Welcome to The Naked Truth. And now, your host, Bridget Barclay.
Good evening, guys, and good morning, England. Welcome to The Naked Truth. Tonight's guest is Miles Johnston, and he is the founder of an independent research project called the Basis Project. It was first created in 1994 after interviewing a security guard called Barry King, who was a part of various different programs being conducted in the British underground military base. So a lot of this is going to be British, but obviously Miles has spoken all around the world and spoken to many witnesses, military witnesses and MyLab stuff. So it will be involving all over the world. So Miles became an investigative journalist in 1994 after going in-depth and deeper research into witness statements who had also experienced similar incidents that it described the same as other statements from people that had UAP and UFO phenomena reports. Interviews are vast on his website, which I have put in the description box, so you can go on to Miles's Basis. And it became the Basis Project. Catalogues of absolutely loads of interviews, lectures, seminars, conferences. His material dates from 1994 to current now. He's been successfully doing this for 30 years plus, interviewing so many people on various different scales. And I am welcoming him here today. Miles, are you there?
Well, welcome and welcome.
Welcome.
I did a lot of pirate radio, so I learned from the United States how to do a shout out.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It is. I only just realized it's 30 years.
Yeah.
And I used to be part of the British UFO thing when I was at school, and I was on TV when I was at fifth form in my school uniform with a jacket.
Wow.
In the big city of Belfast.
Okay, because there was a wave over in Ireland at the time, wasn't there?
This is years ago. There was a lot happening southwest of Ireland, near Dingle, where Star Wars decided to shoot the first of the Star Wars when they took over the Star Wars franchise, and they were down at Dingle, and there's a reason for that. Okay. And there's a lot of UFO stuff down there, a lot of UFO stuff southwest of Ireland, because there's a little island that would appear every so often called High Brazil. And physically arrive, physically appear, and then disappear. And on the other side of that, near some panhandle on the southeastern side of the United States, there's a thing called the Bermuda Triangle, and they're part of the same thing.
Now, isn't High Brazil, years and years ago, it used to be in textbooks and it used to be taught through schools, and then it stopped. Was that right?
Yes, it's on physical maps.
Yeah, that's right.
Maps. And there's a brilliant astronomer, researcher. He's an astronomer who researches low Earth visible lights or something. He doesn't use that other term, UFO.
Okay.
And UAP thing is just another thing to sell something again. But he did an awful lot of work and research on that, and he noticed that the ET craft, or whatever they are, happen to have regular sort of highways across the Earth, and he decided to put his observatory in Ireland where they have a crisscross of two of them, and he set up these cameras, and this actually went into the official astronomical magazines. I'm a member of the Irish Astronomical Association, have been for years, since I was a wee lad. And that was the closest that UFOs got into official astronomy. And part of the presentation I gave in Florida there, the full disclosure now.
Just gone a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
Days ago, yeah. Well, we would more properly say that in Belfast, full disclosure now. And that would terrify you, and you'd run onto your chairs, and I couldn't cover if I said it that way.
But you told us the Florida lot didn't. They were intrigued more.
Florida was a whole new generation. I'm going to be very critical of the UFO community. They're still yapping about Roswell in the United States. in the UK, they're still yapping about Bentwaters. I gave some data on Bentwaters 1977, where a whole pile of school children saw 2 sets of 5 UFOs land in the forest beside Woodbridge Runway. Who knows about that? Now, this is a whole bunch of kids.
Well, there you go. Right now, let's see to that then. Go on.
Well, 1977 was a busy year because there was also a donation of technology to Britain's Area 51, which is in Farnborough, and that's near Minley Manor. Minley Manor is an extremely, let's put it this way.
Farnborough's the airbase. Farnborough's the airbase. And also, don't forget 1977, Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out as well.
Yes. But Minley Manor is beside, it's got, shall we say, notices of discouragement to enter it, as in you will be shot on sight. Things like that are mildly there. And there's 3 generations of it. You got the rusty one, the slightly rusty one, and the brand new one. But 1977, there was a donation of technology that involved 2 Harrier jump jets and several busloads of soldiers who went into this forest beside Minley Manor, which is, of course, right beside a whole military base and beside the DARPA. It was DARPA then, and before that, it was Marconi Defense. And the late Hilary Porter, I don't know if you know Hilary Porter, she's just finally passed on. She was in Marconi Defense, April 1974. Well, a whole bunch of ETs, grey type of ETs, walked straight into the drawing office. In those days, we didn't have computers. 1974, that's old school stuff. And the drawing office was all the classified documents and stuff were all being looked at. And she was in that Marconi base because she would bring the drawings between each department. And of course, that gave her access all areas and a very unique, direct personal view of what was going on. And basically, Marconi Defense, April 1974, all the security guards, this is a highly classified defense company in just outside London, and they're all freaking out. The guards are saying, what's the point in us being here? You know, really, absolutely just desperate. They're really shocked. They could do nothing about these ETs. So then a much more amicable relationship happened with the ETs, and they were in and out of this base and for years. And Hillary actually had an eyewitness account of how a huge triangular craft flew low over the forest. This is all army, all sorts of defense bases there. For instance, the Pirbright Institute, which happened to hold a patent to a certain recent injection. And they fly over that. And it did a thing called fly into the runway at Farnborough. In the same way that craft would be flying into the runway at RAF Machrihanish. And RAF Machrihanish is way up in Scotland. And its command base was RAF St. Morgan. That's Mawgan, Morgan. It sounds like Morgan. Yeah, but that is actually Cornwall Spaceport, and a lot of people were there. And a former British scientific advisor, Peter Paget, I think that is.
Yes, I had Peter on not that long ago, and he's coming back for part 2.
Actually, was called in to the St. Morgan base because that was a listening post, and they were able to listen. The position of these 2 bases is north of Ireland and south of Ireland, so their sonar cabling and all that sort of stuff. The Morgan base would deal with anything that moved way into France, the Bay of Biscay, and all that. And the northern base part of that was RAF Machrihanish, and that listened to everything coming in and out of the north of Scotland and all that. What happened was with that particular thing was that the ETs were a bit pissed off. We don't really like you listening to what we're doing down there. And so Peter was brought in to talk to them. And speeding along, I know we've got limits of time.
He hasn't written a book about that because he did all the Welsh Triangle books, didn't he?
He did the Welsh Triangle, and the Welsh Triangle book was enormously successful in sales.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why it was enormously
because he bought loads of them.
No, the MOD did, and basically there's very few copies, only in libraries and things. But he's re-released that now.
Yeah,
But crucially, when I talk to Nick Pope, so me and Nick go back to the days when we have little tea parties in London, and we'd have the Traveling Earth Mystery Society, and we have a little Sunday afternoon little chat.
Yeah.
And he wrote a letter to me, and it was called it mentioned no defense significance.
Okay.
Now, I'm referring to a talk that Nick's just given, Ozark, I think.
Okay.
I think he gave it in April. And what he said on that, and I've written to him, and I've actually complimented him, because
not many have.
The whole point about Nick is, to be fair, is that he's meant to talk in a bamboozling way, which confuses the hell out of you, so you don't know what the hell he's been talking about. That's what
neither confirm or deny. That's his way. Yeah.
That's far too direct a statement to come out of Nick Pope. The point is, what he just said quite recently is direct. It's in the clear.
Okay.
And I'm flagging this up, that when somebody normally talks in a mealy-mouthed, confusing way, and then they start talking in the clear, that switches on all my alarm bells. That switches all the red lights, the red flashing lights, and the blue, and the other lights, and all the other lights on the panel light up on that. Because there must be an emergency situation of some kind for Nick to do plain speaking about a whole range of things. UFOs are of no defense significance because they are absolutely in bed together with them. Yeah. And that is what Barry King told me way back in 1984, and his co-investigator from an old, very, very good research group called London UFO Studies in East London. There was a huge big ET base in Thames Estuary. I find a big ET base abducting people in tube trains, a Holborn tube station. That was taking whole tube trains of people, taking them into what we call a pocket dimension, doing things to them, dumping them back onto the tube line, and then you had a whole bunch of processed people in the London Tube network. So there was an awful lot going on.
Well, that's a quicker way of getting a lot of people in one swoop, isn't it?
Yes. They do that. They've been doing that with cruise liners.
Oh, don't, because you've got the.
Oh no!
Do you know what? I said that to Steve Bassett. Oh my! You're all in one place. I said,
what's this?
Oh, that's you. Yeah, there's me. I've got my UFO mug.
You've got yours, and we have another one.
Yeah.
And that is to stop transhumanization, because we find out that what's been going on for a very long time. We're going back into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The technocrats, the Aleister Crowleys. A lot of this has been done down in Cornwall. Okay. And again, Cornwall, what's been going on just south of RAF St. Morgan is a little place called Zenner, where they have mermaids.
Yes.
But it's also where two ley lines intertwine, and there's an awful lot of work down there.
Isn't there a beautiful waterfall there? There's a beautiful waterfall there at St. Morgan, isn't there? I'm sure there is.
Yeah, there probably is.
Yeah.
I'm actually talking to 3 people who've been in the base over years. So I think there is a clear climate now of moving on and getting on with things. And that's why the conference I was at in Florida had an awful lot of a whole new generation of awake, switched on people who are looking forward, who've got a much brighter, much wider aspect of what they're looking at, not just lights in the sky.
Yeah.
It's an awful lot further on from that. And it was a really good event with good people doing good things. So, and I was very honored to be speaking at that.
So was it people who had experiences, or people that are just academic and just actually want to mind expand and realize that everything is possible? You know, what type of people were they? Well,
there was a wide selection of people, but the contactees and we started with alien bases in England, but it goes back to that. The Germans were making strange-looking people, and the British knew about that, and they found the labs that they were doing. They were making strange-looking people. They didn't call them aliens. and they were talking about strange-looking aircraft. The Barry King's father got sick, so the Americans came in, but this stuff was then brought to England, and they started making labs in England, and this idea of making programmable biological life forms. We were making aliens under license. And we were dealing with the Alpha Draconis. We were really dealing with the various shades of the Draco. And that's when Britain had its National Health Service and a thing called the heel prick test. Every baby born had the heel pricked, and that got the National Health Service the DNA of the mother and the DNA of the child. And that's when children started to be taken out of school and brought into these programs for super soldiers and all sorts of things. Hundreds of them. Not a lot of them survived that, but they were given a screen memory of doing taken out of school, and you went to some nice seaside place, or you went to some place that had waterfalls or greenery or some historical castle or something. But in the middle of that, you were taken to a base. You were checked out, and then your front memory was that you did go to that place. It just some of the children were then taken, and that's where the James Casbolts came from. And that's where the late Max Spears came from, and the British Super Soldier program came from, and the United States had the Super Soldier program, and then we're talking off-world and off-planet. And what were these people trained for? But they got the recipe wrong, and it wasn't successful. And one of the people I interviewed was a guy called John Irwin. He actually came to me the late 2000s, and he was a British special forces man who was trained by, shall we say, a very pale looking person in the Middle East, in the Mediterranean, and he was taken one step beyond death. He was then programmed with a special fighting ability called the Machine, and then he had to be then brought back into the real world with his front memory and senses switched on. And they operated in the Middle East, 4 groups of 4. There was one step beyond the 16, and those guys were taking out Russians. They were taking out people in the most amazing way. They had a unique fighting skill. And at the age of 75, he could have taken me out just like that. But what they did way back in 1959 is that they discovered ancient data banks. These are like the Emerald tablets, but they're not Emerald tablets. These are high technology data banks, 2 of them in nice boxes with silk boxes to keep them safe. They had nodules on them, and these were placed for placing into a device to operate stargates and portals. We're talking 1959. So the British military were already fighting the equivalent of the World Economic Forum, these Bilderberger type suicidal psychopathic control freaks who are enemies of all organic life. This is the carbon zero agenda, is to remove all organic life from this world. And they're even saying this is going to happen on August the 19th, 2024. And these guys are going to be taken away in a spaceship.
I didn't get that memo.
Well, I think there was a scientific comedy program called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Do you know what? I went to the tip yesterday to take some stuff there, to take some trash there. And when I was putting stuff there was a load of DVDs, and there was a double box set of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And the guy goes, "Oh, have you watched it?" And I said, "No." So I've got VHS machine, the good old fashioned one. I never watched it. I never watched it when it originally came out.
Well, it was originally a radio series on the Broken Biscuit Company. I call the BBC the Broken Biscuit Company. Other people might have different phrases for the BBC. I used to be in the BBC. I was there for 5 years. I learned proper broadcasting. And then I did pirate radio, and that was good fun. Nothing like putting 1.2 million watts on the Irish border and giving it up them, don't tell them, Pike. That's another bad joke from a BBC TV series.
I don't know that. Race might get that one. So back then, what has changed then? Has any of the technology changed, or is it because sometimes the basic technology is often the best technology, like thought creates, and
yes,
so has it changed? Has anything in your research or interviewing people, has anything else stood out at you to say, oh, that's new, I haven't heard that before?
The key to it is that we're being falsely told we are limited to 5 senses. We
I
don't
know
have
that.
5 senses.
Yeah,
We have a
cool.
limitless, we can go anywhere in the universes.
Absolutely.
We have that ability. And what
Yeah.
these parasites are trying to do is to nail us down with implants and make us into cyborgs. That is the Fabian agenda. The Fabian agenda is to make us into cyborgs, to enhance us. We're already enhanced.
Yeah, right.
We are genius. But what they're trying to do is get us to create the reality for them at our expense, effectively digging our own graves, making our own prisons. So we can exist them out of our reality.
Okay, so when you're aware that you have more than your 5 senses and you're able to do things psychically or communicate or astral travel, remote view, and you're aware of all of that, I know from having beings next to me, I know that there is a positive side to that. I also know that there is a negative side to this. So where are we going to find that balance? Until, society is on the path of, being your better self and expanding your better self, and knowing your better self and communicating with these different beings. Where do you think we are on that sort of table? Because as you said, Florida, there were more people there than it totally surprised you how people were aware.
The new generation of people.
Okay, so where do you think we are now on that table?
Okay, it's very simple. We've been told that we only live in 3D and we've got to do this and do that. If you want to get an enhanced view, you've got to take a pill. You've got to take ayahuasca. That's all wrong. One thing that John Irwin did in 1957 was that he didn't take any of that. He didn't take cigarettes or anything else. And he was able to be trained and taught how to go to any part of where his DNA was. And he could see what was going on with the dinosaurs went around, and he could see from within inside somebody who had his DNA.
But you do that when you remote view, so you can go backwards and forth and there's no drugs involved. I mean, back then you didn't have the ayahuasca back in the date that you were saying. A lot of people were on the peyote back then in various forms, weren't they?
Well, you don't want to use any drugs to do that. It takes your inner mind to see things which you are being tricked. The astral is trickery. The key to it is complex number space. And I interviewed Tim Refat, who was a former MI6 Mr. Magic, and he's a very controversial figure because he turned on his masters who tricked him. So Tim is Total Intent Manifest. He published a book on remote viewing in the year 2000 and the Russian remote viewing data. And we've all got to work together on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We are being tricked to fight amongst ourselves.
Good for him for sticking up for himself. Good for him.
We don't want to separate ourselves into wars and fighting wars. That has never been in our interests. And we must get over that, and we must stop all this fighting and World War III stuff. That's why at Rendlesham Forest, when the nukes were there, the British didn't know the nukes were there. We certainly didn't know. The Americans said, we've only got 12 nukes, but he actually had 25, which was in breach of the relevant agreements and things. Somebody came along, fired some energy type things into the bunkers and switched off all the nukes.
Yes.
So somebody was saying, you're not going to play that game. You can have your firecrackers, have your hissy fits and tantrums, but you're not going to use this kind of technology.
But they've done that all over the world anyway, haven't they? So
yes, that was one of the key things which led to the disarmament with Gorbachev and Reagan, because all their nukes, the Russian nukes have been taken out, the American nukes, the British nukes have been taken out. Nobody's going to have their party, which means, well, we'll have disarmament and look as if we did it.
Yeah. Gosh.
But again, UFOs are of no defense significance because we are embedded with them. We've chosen the wrong side. They have apparently left the Alpha Draconis.
They haven't.
All that sort of stuff. But the key to it is, have they left their hybrids behind? And I would have great caution on that.
Well, I had a visitation a couple of years ago by beings that I'd never seen before at all.
Yes,
and it was a positive.
What have you seen?
I do talk about this on the podcast, but it was a UFO experience as well. But it was in my bedroom. It was beings I'd never seen before, and they were tall uprights with big horse heads. Horse heads? Yeah, they smelt my hand. I could see them. I could feel them on my hand. Sorry, everyone that's heard this before, but I'm telling Miles for the first time. And then as soon as I put out my hand for them to sniff, and I knew that they were real because there was 3 of them there, I pulled my hand in, and then I had a big, massive, bright orange light that took over the whole of the window sill, and then from the top of my head down to my base chakra, then this vibration that went all the way out through me. It was positive. I'm going to tell you, it was positive. Race is saying we've got to go for a break, so I'm sorry everyone had to hear that. So we're going to go for a break, and we're going to be back with Miles in a second. See you soon. Bye.
This September 6th through the 13th, join with like-minded souls in the experience of a lifetime on the Royal Caribbean Ovation of the Seas as we travel from Seattle to Alaska. Internationally renowned researchers, investigators, experiencers, authors, holistic healers, contactees, spiritual luminaries will sail on an extraordinary voyage of transformation. This cruise will explore UFOs, alien contact, cover-ups, ancient mysteries, the paranormal, holistic healing, and spirituality. Experience engaging lectures, one-on-one sessions, private, custom-tailored excursions, and a nightly UFO watch. The cruise is booking up fast. Go to contactatsea.com and be sure to mention the UNX Network when you book. That's contactatsea.com or phone 336-749-1219. That's 336-749-1219.
This is Margie Kay, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us #1 on Paranormal Talk Radio.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UNX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
welcome back to the Naked Truth, and we have Miles Johnston here. He is from Basis Project. Welcome back, Miles. Miles, I was just saying, did you see the advert for the ship, the contract, the cruise? Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, just bring your magnetometer with you and check it out. But however, I think you're going to have to extend that cruise about 2 or 3 months, because you've got Steve Bassett there, and once he starts, I had Steve Bassett. He was here some time ago. I ran out of camera media. I ran out of backup media. I even got my phone media running, and he kept going. He's
great.
And I've never known Richard C. Hoagland to overrun at a conference until 1 o'clock in the morning either.
No, he's a character. He is a very strong character. He's another strong character.
These are really good people you've got on there. And Misha Johnson, it was really great to see her at the conference there. I know Misha from the good old days when it was very tough with a lot of the abductees and contactees. A lot of the people
still is.
Yeah. A lot of the basis people haven't survived giving their testimony. And that needs to know we're not dealing with good people, but we have the power and the ability now to get over all that. And that's where this new generation, I am critical about the existing UFO people. They're stuck in the mud, and it's not good enough. So to have a new generation of people coming forward, really fast thinking, hypersensitive, and some abductees and contactees are able to walk out of these bases they've been taken to. Their former captors can't do anything about it because they've got to a higher level of spirituality and consciousness, and they just go where they want.
You've had years of experience of dealing with it, and subconsciously you don't know what goes on and what you're allowed to, what you don't remember. So there is another thing that must trigger as soon as you're in the company existence with them, that you just change totally and become another aspect of yourself. It's funny because we were talking about other abilities past our 5 abilities. I had Daz Smith on. He's a remote viewer, and I'm a really big fan of Courtney Brown. I've always followed Courtney Brown's stuff. I have done remote viewing myself and come up with some very, very good results throughout the years. But he is a new generation. He started off as a medium, then he went to go and work for Courtney Brown on various things, and I think right now, if you can spend the time on yourself, no one's got a lot of time for themselves because everyone's, juggling absolutely everything. But I think it's the most valuable this time right now to spend that time on yourself, working on yourself, to be able to develop more, because consciously so much is happening that we still don't understand. And if you can just find that space, whether it be in that meditative space, or like remote viewing and going off, and I'm not saying the drugs aren't bad, because
I disagree. Don't use them.
Well, I have tried the DMT. That was quite interesting.
It'll send you off sidewise. I'm giving that because of restricted time, but we mustn't restrict ourselves to this flying saucer thing. This involves the megaliths, the megalithic, the layout of ancient stones, and the energy within the stones. A friend of mine, Miriam Wheatley, did some very important work. She's a brilliant lady. She's come up with new stuff on Stonehenge, long skulled people, but also electrical energies are circulating within these stones. So, and the megaliths across all over the world. I mean, where's the highest where would you say the highest concentration of megaliths are? Well, anyway, North Korea. Well,
isn't that funny that they placed them there for a reason then?
They're all over the world. And the point about it is it's the relative positioning of the standing stones, which later became churches, and then were the churches and other structured buildings were made into psychotronic generators to suck the energy off people who go into these structures. We have to look at things at a much wider perspective. The point about it is that those ancient standing stones, which John Irwin's team got data banks which expose them to multiple levels of knowledge and the ability to realign the physical stones on the Earth's surface, which have moved, and reacquire the portals so that they can be used for going to other parts of the universes or locally within our solar system. That's what that technology did way back in 1959. Things have moved on.
But we're now more aware of portals. We're now talking more about portals. We're now seeing that there is an existence of portals. I mean, you only have to watch Skinwalker's Ranch, and now Travis is blown away because they keep picking up this.
But and I'm speeding on here because megaliths and the structures here, the standing stones, are operating technology to bring you to other domains. A lot of people have gone up Silbury Hill. Don't walk up Silbury Hill. I'm not as if I would push coming to Wiltshire, because I'm here in Wiltshire. And it's a wonderful place to be. We got Avebury. People were coming. There were people using West Kennet Longbarrow as a dimensional portal until quite recently. English Heritage then remodeled it to, shall we say, switch it off. There's another brilliant researcher in Ireland, Barry Fitzgerald, doing an awful lot of work on all this. And these portals are there, and they're coming alive, and all.
You've got to be so careful, because what you're allowing into your space, you know, like you're saying, you know, a lot of the sacred sites are put on, you know, now built churches on and various things. But, you know, when you're within that space, if you're not protected, anything will attach and cling on to you.
You've got to be aware of things. It's a bit like you shouldn't use a Ouija board with irresponsibly.
With alcohol.
Don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. But this is the examples of this bringing megaliths, UFOs, high technology. The term Tartarian technology is coming up again a lot. So we have access to
Tartarian. What's that?
Well, essentially, at the end of the 1800s, a bunch of industrialists got together to manipulate the physics as it was being transferred from quaterns, which is complex types of expressions, into E equals MC squared mathematical language, and they deliberately misinterpreted and took certain expressions out of these fundamental equations, so that we would have to continually put oil, gas, and fuel into creating a simple thing like electricity. The way we create electricity has been deliberately de-engineered so that we do it wrong. However, it's clear that there was maybe 50 or 60 or 100 years before that, they were using Tesla-type technology. And this is all being forgotten, and it's hammering on the door to come back. And if we revisited the see, when you go to university, you're taught all this stuff, and then that's it. But we've been taught flawed engineering science, and if we go back to those expressions written by our forefathers, it works, and then you get that access to limitless travel and power. But you've got to have the spiritual responsibility. Use that word. Use the word responsibility.
Yeah, you have to, and very carefully.
My finger.
Yeah, no, very carefully, and you have to word it very well, what you want that responsibility to be.
But all this science, I know Stephen Greer's talked about this, and he's done tremendous work. But the point is that this science was suppressed, and would you believe it? A cabal of businessmen would somehow seek financial gain to make have influence and power in the 20th century. Ooh, that's a weird thing. And what's more, holding a party on a boat and sinking it with all your business rivals. Ooh, is that the Titanic Olympics scandal? All built in Belfast by the finest engineers, of course. But that's what happened. We de facto been hijacked by a relatively small cabal of people who are suppressing this technology and this science. Tesla has done immense work to keep that, and there are people now taking Tesla patents here in England and working on like a cold steam engine, and you use the existing humidity in the air to run a steam turbine and power boats, planes, and ships. That's all available. People are working at it with today's science of 3D printing and metallurgy to make that kind of stuff work. But if we looked a little bit further back and took the dust off some of the ancient manuals, we have all that to our at our availability, and that's the whole point of the SSP. That
Yes.
use of
Back to basics.
steel hulls for submarines in World War II were being used up in space to make huge spacecraft. And there's a brilliant man here called John Walson, and he's adapted a telescope so it sort of has a little bit of a close focus.
Okay.
So rather than looking at the a star 25 billion million miles away, you look at something a bit closer, and he's got relatively good resolution pictures of very large man-made spacecraft.
I have seen it. I've seen it. It's got all the stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's quite remarkable, actually, some of the pictures.
So we were building that, and we were making stuff here in Wiltshire for use on the lunar base.
I wonder if my great grandfather knew anything about this, because he designed the steam engine for the Flying Scotsman. The diesel engine for the Flying Scotsman, and also at his steelworks in Scotland, he designed the first observatory there because he was very, very interested in the stars. So I wonder if my great grandfather was.
Are you suggesting, Bridget, that you've got some kind of generational family connection with the stars?
I think we all have. It's not just me. We all have.
Stir the pit here. Stir the pot.
No.
I think the main thing is that the thing which is now, information is leaking out about ancient technology in a huge structure in Antarctica. And when you see, one of the things that happens with all this stuff, you have the secret aircraft carriers, the hyper technology spacecraft and all this sort of stuff, and wherever it is, somebody's going to have to fix the telephone wire, which is how we know there's a huge massive base here in Wiltshire, because somebody you got to phone somebody, and there's a telephone wire, and you've got to connect it if it goes wrong. Some guy found it and says, "Oh, what's this?" You know, they fired him, but we know now all about that. Also, somebody's got to do a thing called fix the light bulbs.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to somehow, fix the sludge pump, effluent fix something or other. These are basic things, and they use contractors.
Yeah.
And some of these contractors talk. So, for instance, I think Linda Howe, about 4 or 5 years ago, had a couple of whistleblowers talking about this massive building and this huge structured thing in Antarctica in the ice with that symbol, the Order of the Black Sun. The Nazis were they weren't Nazis at the time. I think the SS. We've got to be careful how we use language. So the SS used that symbol, the Order of the Black Sun. Nassim Haramein would argue that we have a point source black sun or black hole at the center of each planet. That, this metal core that was meant to be this. Sorry, I'm speeding on too much, but the center of the planets would appear from his physics that you have a black hole, and at the event horizon of the black hole you have a light coming from it, and that is what would be, some people would say, was a black sun. Okay. Thus you could have people living inside the earth. This particular contractor spoke to a friend of mine. He works in this huge structure, and which they nickname in Antarctica, they call it the cathedral. It's massive. Yes. It's thousands of years old, and the lights still turn on.
Yeah, Andrew Goff spoke about it on my show, I think. Yeah.
Well, Antarctica, if the wobble that's now happening with the solar system, and whether or not we're getting hit by the resultant supernova from Betelgeuse, but once every 12,500 years, I've just done another 2-hour special with an Egyptian, and he's saying that in the Egyptian artifacts and art, in the subtle detail between the left side of each image or each statue, there are very subtle differences, and they all say the same thing. It talks about the Earth's crust rotating.
Okay.
And it does that every 12,500 years or so. And that is why the legends of the sun coming up on this part and then rising up on this other part, because the crust rotates. It's not connected. It loses traction with the inner part of the planet, and the crust will move.
Okay.
And there's a number of YouTube videos on this, but without going into the details of why you have an imbalanced object will spin once, twice, and again on the third, it will rotate, it will invert, and then it will spin back. They call it the tennis racket force when people throw a tennis racket. That is not the case.
Okay.
It's fundamental to the fundamental sources of energy and the way they operate in the universe, and that's called the Om. And those two spirals, one going one way and the other going the other way, some people would call it a Tesla spiral. You have a counter-rotating spiral, and then you have an opposite rotating spiral within the same field. They use that in the Hadron Collider. Why? So the point about that is that they're now looking at potentially Antarctica spinning up, going around twice, and then stabilizing in the equator. Okay?
Okay.
Now, all the planets are changing, but whether that happens or not, or whether it's happening very quickly, because right now our north and south poles, our magnetic fields are moving very quickly. And I did a whole interview with a masterclass with Professor Valentina Zarkova, and she explains that the dates 2025, 2030, 2035 are when the two magnetic waves which come from our sun start to go out of phase.
Okay.
So what happens is you have a magnetic field from the sun with a plus, and the magnetic field from the sun which go into a minus. And whether that's going to twist the Earth's magnetic field round, we don't know. But that is happening. There are major changes happening, and it all happens approximately 12,500 year cycles, which doubles up to 25,000 year cycles. That is in progress. All of the planets in the solar system are changing. Now, whether Betelgeuse's nova will affect it or will affect us, it's affecting. I had a base of 2024. I had 3 women working on this, and that's where the elite knows. I don't like calling them the elite. They know basically where their bread's buttered, so they're buying property up in New Zealand. That sunken continent will come up. Atlantis may rise. This whole thing about Atlantis rising.
I've just bought.
We're going to move around a bit.
It's funny enough, I've just brought on eBay 12 books on Atlantis. They were all in a job lot. I thought, I actually don't have any on that. I think I will. Why haven't I got any? So
well, there were reasons, according to legend, that what they were doing there was very badly wrong. So the Earth, now one of the keys, I haven't mentioned the black goo. One of the key, I've had the man who was in the,
We're talking from we're talking the black goo that people get when they've had UFO experiences, abductions as well.
We're talking about the real reason for the, but again, everything's, Barry King's data involved Nazis, aliens, and all that stuff. Okay, it's the same thing keeps coming. The Falklands War was about recovering huge quantities of sentient oil. Let's drop the term black goo.
Okay.
Crude oil on the Earth is sentient. At the bottoms of the oceans, for instance, in the Gulf of Mexico, where you have geysers and that oil spill situation, that is where the intelligent sentient oil, again with water at deep pressures, is made by the physics of the unit of the planet, the physics of what we have here. The true model of science that we should be looking at is what we call the electric universe. And therefore, we have electrical charges and electrical fields.
That's a lovely name for it. That's a lovely name for it.
Yeah.
Electrical universe.
So what happens in the seawater, the warm seawater, is that this sentient oil loves organizing things. So it organizes molecules with the memory of water, the special relationship that water has, and that makes hydrocarbons. It makes complex molecules, and that is where the physical building blocks of life on this world are built by this world.
Yeah, it tries to
Okay?
heal itself, doesn't it, as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we've got here with carbon zero is an attack on the carbon molecule, thereby an attack by non-organic life.
It's fighting back. Earth
Yeah.
is fighting back.
So what happened very quickly, about 10,000 years ago, all of this stuff's pointing to around about 10,000 BC. A lot of stuff, perhaps from the explosion of Tiamat, the planet at the asteroid belt, maybe that happened a lot sooner. That arrived in the South American continent. The Germans knew about that. They started to refine it. They refined it on Thule Island in the South Georgia Sea. The British had the war, the hissy fitna tantrum with the Argentinians. The prize of that war was large quantities of sentient oil on the Thule Island. And that was involved 4 ships, submarine, 2 destroyers, and a cargo ship. The British extracted that stuff, brought it to the UK, and they've been using it or tried to weaponize it. And the scientists involved with that were all taken out. So it doesn't like causing trouble to other people. It wants to create life.
Yeah. Well,
that's a nutshell?
That is in a nutshell, that makes total sense if you're intelligent enough to take all of that on. Yeah, definitely, because life needs life.
The point is that's fundamental forces of the physics of how planets exist.
Yeah.
So whatever is trying to disturb that is not from around here. So we have to understand that, look on the wider aspects of physics and our abilities, and we have the abilities with our sentient creative powers to deal with that.
Right, we have 2 minutes. So we're talking about other beings now. Positively, how are you seeing that? How are you seeing that interface in our daily lives? I know that I'm picking it up, and I know other experiences and other people that are aware of picking things up. How are you foreseeing what's going to happen?
Explore the universe and become acquainted with your immense abilities, and then we can join together all of the organic life. If you want to find out what's going on, ask the earth, ask the living life forms, ask the trees. They are all able to speak to us.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. I'm a beekeeper, and I spend all
my father was a beekeeper.
I spend all my time with my bees. I love them so much.
My father had 250 beehives. They are communicating with us.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love them every morning when I've got. Anyway, that's another story. But
and the butterflies.
I don't have.
I had a dragonfly here that size. It came in and landed here, and I communicated with it for almost 2 minutes. It was like a small airplane.
Beautiful.
And then
iridescent wings. Oh, how beautiful.
We have the power to do this.
We do.
Just need to give ourselves permission to do it.
It's no different when you're communicating with a being or a light source and energy. You say, hey, hang on a minute. And then you start to communicate. And then it's a really lovely understanding of, well, not an understanding because you don't really understand it, but it's just such a positive vibe that actually is very positive. It gives you a positive outlook afterwards. It's so amazing. Listen, we're going to have to round this up. Is there anything that you want to promote and where you're going and what you're doing?
We're talking about extraterrestrial life, extra dimensional life. We're surrounded by life. Talk to it. Listen to the trees. Listen to the animals. All the other sentient beings. They can talk to us. They literally can talk to us. And let's talk to our world that we are living in. And then we can talk to other places.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Miles. You are definitely going to come on again because you are just, I told you knew so much and you didn't crack many jokes. So you're absolutely have everything.
If you got access to what was on before we went on air.
Oh, yeah, right. Top secret. All right. Okay. Listen, Miles, thank you so much. All of the links will be there to your website and your Facebook.
Basis.tv.
All right, please go through all of his lectures, the old lectures.
BasisTV.com.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for listening in. And thank you, Miles, for a very heartfelt communicating with everybody in the universe. And hope they take it all in. Thank you. All right. See you later. Bye from me.
And you.